Hello and a very warm welcome to this late May edition of The Old Shop.
It definitely feels like time to come and have a look at the front garden again. I think it's been not quite 2 weeks, since I last filmed in here. But what a difference, because so many of the roses are out before I even get in the gate. I know the light's a little bit strong because it's morning and it's east facing the cottage, so get a lot of morning sun. But this beautiful rose here, which I might get a better shot of when I get round the corner, so I'm getting overexcited and showing you before I get right into the garden. It's actually called Boscobel, which is a David Austin rose, beautiful one, and quite a few of those out, as you can probably see between the leaves there. And also this gorgeous, glorious one, which was the first one to come out, called Desdemona. And both of those are scented. Well, I do try to have, if I'm going to have something like a rose, I do pick the ones that say, extra strongly scented, David Austin ones particularly. I like the David Austin ones because they tend to repeat flower. So anyway, as you can probably see, it's all become really much kind of bigger and greener, and the new dawn rose is not quite, I think there might be 1 or 2 flowers, but there's one down here. Very delicate. This is not so strongly scented actually, but it's a beautiful rose to put around the door. So if I could get it less unruly by actually doing something about training it, then I could probably have it going almost right round the door by now, which I will try to do. I'm not just one of those things I get really put off trying to do because I don't really know quite how to do it in terms of drilling into masonry and things. But anyway, that's all to happen in the future. And I've just noticed for the first time that the Alchemilla mollis is coming out in flower as well. It's a bit hidden by all the other leaves here, but I'm sure it'll make its own way because I can see some more there between the other leaves, because it really does like to grow, Alchemilla. I love it, it's one of my favourites. And you can see actually a really good illustration of why it's called Alchemilla, because the little drops of water, it rained yesterday, and the little drops of water that are staying inside the leaves are like little jewels or little bits of alchemist, dew that alchemists would use in their alchemy. So that's how it gets its name, and I just really, really like it. And the other rose here is just coming out as well, and that's the one called Emily Bronte. But as you can see, it really is in just in that stage where it's about to burst into flower, which is such a beautiful stage. Like, look at that rosebud. Could that be any more perfect? Now we've got the I can't say the word, Aquilegias, which we were looking at before anyway. But also there's another clematis out here. Now, because this trellis is north facing, it means everything that's growing on it, the flowers really want to go on the other side of the trellis, because that will be south facing for it. So, I mean, most plants, given the choice, would rather be south facing. Obviously not 100% of plants, because some are shade loving plants, but anyway, a lot of plants that would grow up a trellis would prefer south facing if they had the opportunity, and so I have to keep sneakily going round there when my next door neighbour is out at work and pushing the flowers back through. Oh dear, because literally they were all over that side, which is very nice for him, but to be honest, anyway, I've done that. So this little rose here is just coming as well. That's my fairy rose, as I call it, which is really, I'll just put my hand here so you can see the size of the bud. It's really small. It's another David Austin one. It's always been a bit spindly. I've had it for a few years now. It's a little bit spindly looking, the stems and everything, but I mean, you could call it spindly or you could call it delicate and fairy-like, and I'm going to go for the latter. The pond is totally hidden. I can't really even see where it is. Here it is. There. And unfortunately the frog spawn that I put in doesn't really seem to have, I can't actually detect any tadpoles, unfortunately, but you never know, they might be there under the surface turning into frogs. I don't know, but we'll find out no doubt later in the season if there are little tiny frogs hopping around. There's the geraniums, more of those are flowering as well. And there's a poppy, it's a beautiful poppy. Well, it will be when it comes out. And I put that in last summer when it was actually flowering. So I know what it'll be like. It's the most glorious kind of apricot-y colour, which I think will be beautiful in the garden here. And it's a perennial type. And this is still out, this beautiful geum, which we've looked at several times because it's been, I think it was the first flower out in the garden this year. And if you like the scene above the bird bath there, it's as you can see, it's become really much more lush between the bird bath and the hedge, because that's quite a difficult area, being shaded by the hedge and the hedge taking the goodness and everything. So it's really heartening to see it really filling out. And there's some more of the geums kind of just crowding around the bird bath, which I like as well. And more geraniums as well. And the willow, still not tall enough to make an arch, but you know, every week it's getting a little bit taller, I tell myself. And it's not going to be that long before the longest stem on this side and the longest stem on this side could be tied together, I think. And that just reminded me to show you the fennel, which is growing underneath, which of course I can put into salads. And this is thyme. I don't know if you remember me putting in the thyme here, but that's come back beautifully actually, because I cut it right back. I've never been very successful with thyme. It always just goes woody or sticky, or not sticky, but you know, like little sticks, and then kind of just disappears. But this I did cut back, I think, at the right time, and it's actually looking really nice and healthy. And I put it there from conceptual reasons really, because I like the idea of it being a time, you're stepping it out of time, to use a pun, from the door, which actually isn't a door which can be used, but it's still there, into the garden. So that was the idea of time and thyme. And also if you stand on it, of course, you get a lovely thyme scent. What I'm thinking of doing, just to quickly say before we leave the front garden here, is what I'd love to do is to make this circular paved area much more distinctive and much more individual to me. And I bought it second hand actually off Facebook Marketplace from somebody, and I've also got the outer layer so that it would be it was squared off, and so I'm going to use the other part of it somewhere else in the garden. But it's fine, but wouldn't it be nice to think of it being maybe some sort of pebble mosaic? You could do something that represented the festivals of the year or moon phases. It really is beloved of the wildlife as well, which is again exactly what I wanted right from the start. Not only are there little birds flitting up and down, I found, unfortunately I can't find it now, but there was a little tiny half eggshell down here, which has obviously been a little chick had hatched out of. I thought it might be the egg of a sparrow, because the sparrows are often around, and I think they nest under the eaves here. But actually I looked it up in my lovely book, and I'll actually find the book and show you when I go in, but it's actually definitely a blue tit, and it was absolutely tiny. You cannot imagine an actual bird coming out of something as tiny as that, but it clearly did. I know they can have lots of babies, but I wish I'd still got the half shell, but it was so delicate, it just disintegrated. But not before I'd identified it anyway, from my lovely bird's egg book, which I think you'll love. So I will go and get that to show you shortly. Okay, so I'm inside now, and this is the book. It's actually still on the table because I was looking up the egg. It's beautiful book. I can't begin to tell you how lovely it is. Can't remember where it came from now. Anyway, it's just gorgeous, and I did find the identification, so let me see if I can find it again. Right, here it is. Isn't that a beautiful page? And they are to scale. So if I put my finger, oh, it's my dirty old nails, but see, I put my hand there, and you can see it's absolutely tiny, like my fingertip, and that's how this little half shell looked. It's just a lovely book. I can't resist showing you another page from it, because this is quite typical as well. But it even calls a great titmouse. It's so old-fashioned. And it shows you also the cuckoo, which is quite interesting, although I know that cuckoo eggs vary according to the host that they find. But yeah, you can see actually on this page particularly how they're all to scale. Having seen the most wonderful giant molehill this morning on the lane, I was inspired to do another little tour of the back garden. This time nothing as conventional as a tour of Aquilegias, although I will show you the last one that's come out, which is the most beautiful one I can ever remember seeing. But also I thought, let's do something quite different and have a tour of the molehills in celebration of moles, because this garden is absolutely intended to be a haven for all wildlife. And I firmly believe that it will find its own balance, even though there might be, say, a lot of blackfly, for example. If I attract the right wildlife in, then they will deal with it. And if they don't, well, you know, that's it one year, and another year it'll be different again. So this is my principle. Now, it's not that I'm going to let everything be, because at the moment it's being totally choked by bindweed, and I need to address that and actually start to, like I'll just show you here, although we're doing a molehill tour, but I happen to be crouched down by this particular little shrub, and as you can see it's got bindweed climbing up it, which on that trunk doesn't matter too much, but as soon as it starts binding all the leaves together and so on, then it's going to be stunting the growth, and basically the shrub won't be happy, and why should it be? And that's the same with things like the fruit trees, which are going to be giving hopefully giving fruit. So you know, you want to actually give them a good chance, which is why there's a lot to do. But anyway, in the meantime, rather than pulling out bindweed, I'm going to give you a tour of molehills, which doesn't sound particularly sensible, but that's where we are. I was prompted to do this by, maybe we'll walk round, I'm just not sure what the best views are to give you, so that you don't get too appalled by other things and not going on in the garden, but I think we'll just have to cope with that. Actually, there's another one here to show you. There's one here. That looks quite a fresh one to me. And this one here, I don't know if you can get much of an idea of the dimension of them from this kind of flat shot, you know, on a video, but hopefully you get an idea. It's quite a good sized one, that one. Anyway, I'll walk around while I talk to you so you can get a sort of view as well. For what it's worth. Anyway, yeah, what I was going to say was, I recently had a Facebook memory come up, which was to do with when I was living in a rented holiday cottage for a short time before I came here. Well, actually quite a long time. But anyway, the landlady had a lawn, as a lot of people do, and a mown type of lawn, and she used to employ this mole man to come and set traps and kill them, and I couldn't do anything about it because it was not my property. And I used to see his van sometimes in the driveway, and you see these little kind of, I don't know, little series of wires and traps and goodness knows what on the back lawn. There were two lawns. I could avoid the one really that he was working in or on, or you could see evidence from his activities. Anyway, yes, so I put up this little story, which was just a memory that had come up of my encounter with this mole man, and telling him I loved moles and that I welcomed them, and it would be my lifelong ambition to have moles in my garden. And they just started to arrive in my old garden, and then I had to leave it. And how sad I was. And he was just completely nonplussed by that, as you probably might imagine if you know anything about mole catchers and similar people, you know, people with that similar kind of job, that they think it's quite justified. Anyway, to cut a long story short, here I am at the old shop, and I have got so many moles here, and it's such a pleasure, you know, to host them. It's such a pleasure to know that they're here, along with the birds and the bees and all the other creatures that are inhabiting the garden. yeah, that's it really. That's all I wanted to say about moles. And this is the Aquilegia I wanted to show you, which was the one that wasn't out last time that we looked, and it's probably the most beautiful one I've ever seen. I've never seen one which is this pale lilac-y colour and with green kind of buds and everything. And look how many layers. The double, it's not a double, it's more like quadruple. Isn't that amazing? And you know, it's not a bought named variety, they just happen. They just seed themselves and they all come out different. It's just like Christmas or a lucky dip, or you know, anything that's exciting like that. Or well, you know, you name it, and it's got that level of surprise, anticipation and excitement. Again, you can see again how the bees, as I was showing you last time with the Aquilegias, the other Aquilegias in the garden, how beloved they are of bees. There's always bees around them. It's a long time since we've been down to Crow Wood together, so I thought I'd have a little walk, because it's so sunny today. I thought I'd have a little walk down here. I have only been as far as the rowan trees that I was using when I was filming and photographing for the rowan dance candle. You can see one here with the blossom all finished, ready to turn into little orange berries later in the season. But anyway, because the light is so lovely today, I thought it would be a really good day to have a quick walk round. So what I'll do is every so often I'll just do a little bit more videoing so you can get a sense of what it's like now in late May. And we go down by the water. Well, there probably isn't any water in there at the moment, but we'll see, because as I say, it's ages since I've been here myself, any further than about here. So we'll have a look. One thing that's happened since I was here last is that this tree's fallen across the path, so I can get under it, but they do come down all the time, and birches are not particularly long-lived. I'm down at the far edge of the wood here. You can see the field beyond, where I saw the red deer herd a couple of times. I've seen them much nearer home since then, really close to home, but that's another story. But yeah, as I suspected or really feared, it is completely dry, the water channel down here, and the colour of the leaves shows the colour that the water is when it does flow. It's kind of very rusty colour, and there must be a lot of pigment in the makeup of the earth here, which comes up and into the water, and then it's obviously evaporated at the moment. But it's very sad because it doesn't seem late in the year at all for it to start to be as dry as this. We haven't had much. We have had rain in the last couple of days, or few days, but that's not been anywhere near enough to do anything. And here, this side, it's all rushes because it's normally wet, but it's actually dry. You could probably walk over there quite easily. Probably isn't even particularly boggy. So yeah, I've just find that very sad. I know a lot of people like it to be dry and sunny and everything, and sunshine is lovely, but it's actually quite worrying to me that the climate is drying so much. You see down there's a tiny little patch of wetness but sometimes it's been flowing, you know. Yeah. Anyway, I kind of knew it would be like this really, so I'm not despondent exactly, but it is sad. Because there's also flag irises, which are here. Look, I'll show you, they are beautiful. There's normally a lot more, and I just don't think they like the dry. And they're lovely. It's lovely to see them. It's the first time I've seen flag irises open this year. I'll see if I can zoom in. Yeah. Anyway, yes, they are beautiful, but there are fewer this year for sure. This is a favourite oak tree that I often visit. It's got the most lovely roots, as you can see here, and when you come round the edge, here, you can actually see there are a lot more, thankfully, irises just here, although I still think there were more before. But anyway, they are lovely. Maybe we'll have to come back at dusk and see how they look in the dusk, because I remember them looking really beautiful that way before last year it must have been. Oh, now, can you see what I can see? Let me see if I can focus. Over there, there's some deer in the field. Big deer, they're red deer. There's another fallen tree in my path here that I've got to get underneath. It really is very wild. I'll just show you a view across where the other trees are. You can see it's very much left to nature most of the time. And I'll just go underneath this tree. It's an oak tree this time. It might have enough roots in the ground to live, but I'm not sure. The sun keeps coming and going between clouds, but that makes it really nice because it's quite breezy as well, so that there are dappled patches of sunshine that come and go. So I really like that. It's at the middle of the day, so there's not probably so much birdsong as there would be first thing in the morning or just before the birds settle. But I had just a few minutes and I thought I'd come out and just show you Crow Wood and see it myself. As I say, I haven't actually been to this part of the wood, which is my circular walk that I do when I do come here. I haven't done this for quite a while, so it's nice for me to see where it all is. There was certainly no bracken at all when I was last here, and look at it now. I've just stepped inside the little church and there are lots of things we could look at, but I thought we'd just look at the wall paintings because the church is really well known for these wall paintings. It's a church which is very near where I live, but until recently you had to go and ask for the key in order to come and have a look at a big house down the lane, and it's just the kind of thing that puts me off. If I really wanted to come and see it for some study purpose, I would do it, but anyway, I much prefer the fact that it's now been opened so that you can just walk in, which is partly because they're trying to raise funds to conserve these paintings, and I think the more people who come and have a look, they've got a piece of paper where you can put a cross to show you've visited, then the more likely they are to get funding, and more funding as far as I can understand. So anyway, let's have a look because it is absolutely amazing. I won't try and interpret it all for you because some of it is quite obvious and other bits I've got to look up myself. So this I can see is obviously the tree of knowledge or the tree of life, and each side of it there are Adam and Eve. I don't know if you have to get your eye in when the figures are so worn as this, but that I'm sure is what that is. And underneath I can see a ring of people, and right at the bottom there are flames, so I imagine that is probably going down to the pit of hell. But you know, that's how these churches operated. So I'm not sure what the one in the middle is, but I can certainly see that we've got a St. Christopher here. I love St. Christopher, for lots of reasons, I suppose, partly because of one of my favourite, but no, my favourite book of all time, called The Children of Green Knowe by Lucy Boston. And in that book, the old manor house, which is where all the stories are set about Green Knowe, has an old stone St. Christopher, life-sized, standing outside, which nobody knows where it has come from, but ancient. And in the story is a very important part of the story. And in fact, when I was a child, I remember starting to write a novel about St. Christopher, written in the first person. I was a strange child, which started, I'm Christopher, Saint Christopher they call me. Anyway, I can't remember any more than that. I might not have got much further than that. But St Christopher, I know this is probably quite a well-known legend, but I'll recount it anyway. He's usually painted on the wall like this, probably in most of the medieval churches, but a lot of them have been destroyed or painted over. And he was put there because you only had to walk into the door, which is the other side, opposite. I'll just show you the door. I mean, it's full of notices and bits and pieces everywhere, but you get the idea. That's where you walk in. And right round here is St Christopher. So all you have to do is walk in the door and cross yourself and go off on your journey, and St Christopher would make sure that, well, some people say that you wouldn't die that day, but also, really, I think the actual magical idea is that you won't die an unprepared death that day, because it was so important to be prepared by having all the last rites and the unctions and whatever they call it, last, you know what I mean, all that stuff. Otherwise you would not go to heaven, so it was absolutely nothing worse than dying an unprepared death. And St Christopher would make sure that you were safe in that way. And that is why, to this day, people have medals of St Christopher in their car or on their motorbike to protect them for that very reason. So all those things are still here and still with us. The colours are so marvellous, aren't they? I don't know, and I haven't looked up what these paintings are signifying, although I will be able to, because I've bought a little booklet in the church which helps to it's helping for their appeal as well, to conserve the paintings, which is just starting to become more degraded. I think they're incorrectly conserved in the Victorian times, and it's actually led to further degradation than they would have had if they hadn't messed around with them. I think they put some wax on top or something, and that hasn't helped. But if you take nothing else from it, from your own perspective, I think just the beautiful colours and the beautiful way that time has made parts of it stand out and parts of it disappear. The way the halos are still quite vivid, for example. And there's more all around this window embrasure. So you can imagine how colourful the churches all were in their day, because they would all have been painted in these colours. And in fact, this colour is a pale imitation of the colours that would have been shocking to us if we saw the bright reds, for example, that the churches would have been painted in. This is just what's left. That's beautiful, isn't it? It looks like, I'd say, possibly, because I've got halos, some of the disciples, I would have said. This cross here would have been one of the consecration crosses that were where the church was anointed in different places all the way around it to protect it and seal it against evil when the church was first built and put into use. But what I thought was really, I think they're very beautiful anyway, but I thought it was really interesting that when you look closely, I don't know if I can zoom in a little bit here, you could actually see the drawing, which is how they, you see the compass marks of the circle that they used to draft it, and also you can see where another circle is drawn underneath, and I wonder whether they somebody started drawing it there and then decided to make it a little bit higher and drew it again a little bit higher up. I just love how you can just get little stories, little glimpses of those ancient stories. And if you move across from this consecration cross, you just come to St Christopher's foot, which just that misty kind of almost there and not there quality is one of those things I absolutely love. I don't know why, but I've just always loved this idea of the veiled or hidden and just coming through, and sometimes you don't see something to start with and then you kind of gradually make it out, rather like this foot. And you can see more colour all around the chancel arch, which again gives you an idea of how colourful churches would have been. Now, the other thing I wanted to show you in the church, as well as the paintings, is also well known for its screen. Now, it's not one of those beautiful screens that I love with the pictures, all scratched pictures of the disciples or other saints, but it's interesting. I think it's relatively early. It's said to be something between 1400 and 1450, and I don't know how well they'll pick up. I'm not sure, but it's the carvings in the spandrels here that are, it's picking up quite well. this really odd bat kind of, like bat wasp person. Maybe that's a skeleton with the ribs there. I would think it probably was. And there's another one on the other side. And a very strange carving here, which I can't quite make head or tail of, but isn't that beautifully carved? It's carved looking like rope and feathers. Really odd, but really interesting. And this is the other side of the arch, and there's some more of these figures. So they seem to be quite important in this church. You don't usually get a lot of repetition in this way. These creatures, I did read in the church guide, they say that they're antelopes. And that antelopes signify in heraldry things I wasn't totally convinced of, that they are horned, and yet they have a tusk on their head, which to me just sounds like unicorns, but they never used the word unicorn. So I don't quite get that, and that the horns signify the Old and the New Testament, and that by grasping them, then you can cut through vice. I'm not sure about that, to be honest. But anyway, they are mythical creatures of one kind or another. I think we can agree on that. And these, I think, are my favourites. And these are the winged hearts. I think they're absolutely beautiful. And they are said to signify the Virgin Mary and her visitation by the angel Gabriel. And the booklet in the church points out that the way the hearts have been carved is very much like strawberries, and strawberries were said to symbolise the sweetness of the Virgin Mary. And that makes sense to me. They are absolutely beautiful when you think how many hundreds of years old they are, and they're still really powerful now.